welcome back. This is Donna with ABC Cake Decorating Supplies. Believe it or not, we're already on lesson 27 if you've been following from the beginning. Wow, before long we're going to go around the whole world and we're going to go do it together with cake. Our very next destination is going to be Halloween. Don't be scared. So let's get started. This is called an explosion cake. What I've done is I covered the cake board. I used cookie cutter cutouts and I put Beware, Happy Halloween and Boo. This is the explosion cake where you have the fondant kind of coming apart and then you have a different layer of fondant inside. So we have a bunch of different appliques going on here. And now also, if you went along with the last journey, we did the 2-plate system on tiering cakes. This is called a stack cake. And the reason is because now the 2 cakes are stacked on top of each other. But you just can't stack them on top of each other because if you've ever tried that, you'll find that this cake is going to press into that cake and it won't stay on top of it. So let's start. For a haunting good time, we're going to cover this cake board now. This cake board here obviously is going to be way bigger than my cake. The standard size is 2 to 4 inches larger, and we're going way back to the beginning of our lessons. This one here is going to be offset, and it's also going to be larger so that I can go ahead and put names in here. You can make this a birthday cake. You can make this a 4th of July cake, red, white, and blue with fireworks coming out of it. Happy 4th of July. Be a birthday cake with rainbows and unicorns coming out of the top of it. Happy birthday. So all of our themed cakes, you can apply that theme to other cakes, and out of one kind of a cake decoration, it's unlimited what you'll be able to do with that. Got my cake board, and actually this is a cake drum, if you remember. Because we're dealing with fondant cakes on this one, they get very heavy, and you're going to need something that's nice and sturdy. If you remember when we covered our cake boards back in the lessons with our fondant, if not, please go back and review those as many times as you'd like. With our cake board, we're going to take our piping gel and we're going to use that as we do for the icing on the cake when we cover it so that the fondant has something to stick to. And if you remember when I was referring to it the first time, we're just going to lightly put piping gel all over this. And then once we've got the top covered, don't forget we want to do the sides also because we're going to have the fondant come over the sides. So we're just coming in here. You can probably take some of that off the top. And we're just going to come around the sides. So we're almost there. There we are. So we'll just come around and wherever you see some long parts. And then what we've done, we've rolled out our fondant. Ooh, got our fondant. And this is where it's so easy. We're just going to take it, put it down. Then I'm going to lift this up. And what I'm going to do is put this one down so that I'm working on that and not my countertop. We're going to pull this off. And we're going to come in here, just fold this over. And if you want to, you can take, I'm going to take this. Sometimes it's nicer to work just a little bit higher than you are. That way there you can bring this down. I'm just going to come around here and just. And because it's kind of a spooky cake, it doesn't have to be completely smooth because sometimes you want to get this little kind of marble dirt look to it. And just kind of move out any air bubbles that you might have. And then I'm just going to come around here like this, and what I want to do is cut off any of the extra fondant that's hanging. You can see it's very easy to do, and then as you push it down under, I'm going to set it up here until I finish cutting off all of my sides. Okay, now I have my little snips. I'm gonna smooth this out just a little bit. Then I'm gonna get my fondant smoother and I'm gonna smooth out my cake just a little bit. If you're doing darker cakes and a darker fondant and you need to put a little bit of powder on them, you can always go ahead and you can use cocoa, a cocoa powder, because it's darker. And what I'm doing here is I'm just gonna go ahead and kind of pound out my little bit of bubbles here, especially where it's really gonna matter. Okay, now we're just gonna say that's good for now. When you get ready to center your cake, you can also use your cake pan, or if you have a circle the same size, and just set it on here so that you kind of have an idea of where you want that. And what I'm going to do here is come in with my letterings. And like here, I want to go boo. So you take it and go. And what's nice about these is you can kind of just pre-put them where you think you want them. So I have like boo. And then we're going to do W, A, R, E. And then you can kind of figure out how you want these placed. And then also, I have my little ghosts that are kind of inserted into the cake board. We're gonna just press these in, B, O, O, and then watch when you pull them up. You can get your letters right there. And this is what's so fun is you get to just experiment and just make sure you spell it right. So B, E, W, A, R, E. Beware. And then with our ghosts, if you're wanting to do an inlay, this is an inlay. We're going to take our cookie cutter and we're going to do a ghost going this way. And what we want to do with him is we're going to pick him up. And then this ghost is going to kind of be a silly ghost. So he's going to kind of fly upside down. We're going to go like this. Then we can take, here we are, our X-Acto knife. And all we're going to do here is we're just going to pull these guys up. Then what I've done is I went ahead, and when you're doing something flat like this, it's always nice to let them dry just a little bit so you can pick them up and put them in and they don't get all flimsy and distorted. We're just going to stick them. Look at that. It's just that little extra thing. Oh, little happy ghosts. So there's our ghosts. Now that that guy's done, what we need to do is put our cake on top of our cake board. I did this one just a little different, and what I did is I added a little bit of green in there to kind of enhance the green on the top. First thing I want to do is be able to glue my cake on my cake board. So I'm going to take this, just put a little bit of piping gel here. So we want to glue them on there. And then, okay, I do have two cake boards here. I had a larger cake board, and this is kind of a nice little note. I put a larger cake board on top of the cake, even though it already has a cake board on it, so that as I was transporting my cake, the sides wouldn't hit on the box. I'm going to take this, go underneath it to lift it up, and this is why you want your cake board under your fondant, so you can lift up your cake. I'm going to take this, and I'm going to decide where I want it at. and just set it down right there. Next, I want to talk a little bit about stacking your cakes. Unlike the one with the 4th of July, you had 2 plates and you had your pillars that went in between the 2 plates and you just set it on top, which you could totally do with this cake. But if you want to start to stack your cakes, you need a support system. How that is achieved, that cake there, I want to set it right here. So this gives me an idea where I'm going to need to start to put my stacking. I'm going to just make a couple little marks here on my cake so that I know where I'm going with this. So now I can see where I'm going. I don't know if you can or not, but that's, as long as you can see them, that is all that's going to matter. But I do have a little bit of a dotted line going around here. When you start again dealing with the fondant cakes, they do get heavy. This cake is already pretty heavy and I don't even have the top layer on yet. You want to use some type of a rod. These are called dowel rods. These are wooden ones. You can use straws. Straws are very weak this way, but when you put them in this way, they're very strong. So you can use straws, you can use wooden. You can also use what's called bulba straws. They come in a pack, well, we sell them in packages like this at ABC, and they're already kind of got a little taper on them, so they're easy to push into the cake. Doing larger cakes, nothing more, again, than a straw. It's just a larger diameter, so it'll support more weight. Because sometimes you'll have a cake that makes 14, 16, 18 inches large, and instead of having to put, 30 of these guys in there, you may only have to put about 15 of these in there. Different ways to get there, but you're going to apply it all the same way. These may take a little bit of a special tool to cut them. Sometimes you can use a serrated knife. Sometimes you can use your scissors. I like to use, and I made this just for cakes. I wiped it all off with disinfectant, and now I use it just for cakes. And it's the things that the plumbers use, when they're doing PVC pipes and things like that. And it cuts really well. I also use that for my wooden dowel rods. I'm going to use the wooden dowel rods for this one. And what I want to do is you want to place these about 1 inch apart. Got my dotted line right here. One of the things I want to do is push this in. Then I'm going to mark it. And when I mark it, I'm going to use, I'll just use this. And I'm just going to mark just a little bit above the top. Not a lot, but just enough off the top. Then I'm going to pull this out. And then I have my mark right there. Now I'm going to take my cutters here. And what's nice is these ratchet, if I can find my mark again. There it is, okay. And this is a very important step here. After you cut this one, you want to cut all the other ones to that size. You don't want to push them in, because if the icing or your cake is not quite level, you want your plate to sit nice and flat. So we're going to go in here and we're just going to cut a bunch of these. And this here, after you have it, you can just come in here and cut these. Okay, then we're going to take these and we're just going to come in here. We're going to go around the radius. And then right here. Okay, now we're just going to set this cake aside so we can do the explosion part of our cake. So I'm going to lift this up, and it is getting heavy. When you ever see those cake competitions and those people are moving those big cakes, wow, that's a lot of weight. I'm going to set this right here. Now we're going to get ready to cover this explosion cake with fondant. What I'm going to do is I'm going to put it on my cake board. So you can either use a little bit of icing, piping gel, just something to get it to stick on there. Pick up my cake. I think I have a piece of paper underneath there. Pull this off. Stick them on there. We want to go ahead and we want to cover our cake. And the reason, if you remember why we cover our cakes in fondant, if not, go to the class up on top and it's going to show you how to cover your cake in fondant. It's always good to go back to the basics, especially if you haven't done it in a while. We don't need to put a lot of icing on there, but we need to put enough on here so that our fondant's going to stick. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and do the very top part, and I'm going to use my lime green fondant. Now, if you don't have lime green fondant, remember, you can always color it. Just use your gel paste colors and use your white fondant. Add some color to it. Knead it in there. And when you see how easy this is, we're going to go ahead and roll this out to 6 inches. And because this was such a little piece of fondant, I'm just going to use the whole thing. Now we'll just spread this out just a little bit here. And we'll use our 6-inch pan just to clean up the edges a little bit, I've decided. And I'm not going to use my X-Acto knife on my fondant mat because I don't want to cut too deep and cut my mat. So I'm just going to use my spatula. There, whoop. Get that guy off. There we are. Okay. Now it doesn't have to be absolutely perfect either because we're only going to be pulling it apart just a little bit. Then we're going to lift this guy up and decide which side you like. I'm going to put it on here like this. Ooh, scary, huh? Got the witch's brew going on here. Now what we're going to do is we're going to go in and we're just going to cover our cake with fondant. So we need to get our orange fondant. Then we're going to go ahead. We're going to cover our cake. Okay, now that I have it out to about my 14, it's probably just a little bit bigger, but that's okay. I want to cover my cake in my fondant. I'm going to cover the whole thing. I want to make sure that I like this, so I'm kind of just looking at it a little bit. Also, you want to make sure that your mat was greased enough so it doesn't stick. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to take my cake. Like I say, fondant mats are nice. You can never have enough fondant mats. Then with this one, unlike the 4th of July cake where I rolled it up, you could do the same thing with this, but because I'm dealing with a small cake and a small amount of fondant, I'm just going to take it, I'm just going to place it over the top and just bloop, just like that. Now, just like before when we cover our cakes in fondant, we're just going to kind of stretch it out, pat it, and kind of work all our little, so that we don't have any seams. And remember, you don't want to tug down on it, you just want to spread it out. And here. Okay, nice. We're just going to take our spatula or just cut around it close. And then because fondant dries out quickly, and this is a nice piece of fondant, I'm just going to go ahead and wrap it up. So what we have here now is we have our cake board. I'll set this on the side here so it'll be easier. We have our dowels and our cake, so it's going to support that. we have our cake. Take this. That's covered in fondant. We have our fondant board. Now that I have my cake ready to put on top, I'm going to take my spatula, put a little bit of icing here. Again, that's going to be because I don't want it to move around. You can use piping gel too. I just had the icing available. We're going to take this. We're going to set it down. And we're just going to kind of smooth this out. Now, if you wanted to marble the top one, you could have done that also. Now, this is where we're going to take our X-Acto knife, but we don't want to cut too deep. We basically want to cut just enough so that we can peel back the green fondant. And how many you want, that's totally up to you. We're going to come in here, I'm going to cut. And I don't like to go all the way back, only because I don't want the weight of the fondant to end up starting to tear. So if you just wanted 4 tears, you could do 4 tears. Yeah, let's do 4 tears, only because we did a lot on that one. And then watch what happens here when you pull this back. See underneath there? And we're just going to pull these guys back. Oh, you probably need to cut this one a little bit more. There we go. And pull this one back. Now, if you need to, if you've got more than just these four seem to be holding okay, but you can always take parchment paper, paper towels, anything you'd like, and just stick them in here so that it'll keep its shape while it's drying. Then you can come back in with any type of embellishments you want. I don't have any of my novelties here with the rings or the spider, but what I do have are my ghosts. And here you'll take them and you can just stick them in here. And I have some funny ones. You can just stick them in here like this. What we want to do around here, because we want our fondant strip to fit, we're going to go ahead and take our paintbrush and we're going to paint right around there. We're going to paint a fondant or a piping gel strip for our fondant to stick to. I'm just going to go around our whole cake. Now what you can do instead of, because if you pick this up, it's going to start sagging, you can wind it up, and then you can pick it up. And we'll start in the back here, and we'll go this way. And then you just unwind it as you go around. And then you can smooth it out. Now if you wanted to put some type of design on here, you can we'll take the back of this if you want, and you can push in just to give it a design if you want. Just to give it something a little bit different. And then you can steal from one cake to give to another. Push these little guys in here. All these are just little plastic picks. If you want, you could put chocolate pieces in the top. You could do any kind of thing you want to do. And then there's your Halloween cake. It's so simple, and what we've done is we've done the stacking where they just tier on top. One of the things you might want to do is if you are actually going to be taking this cake and transferring it someplace, like the 4th of July cake, because it was 2 tiers, you could separate them, put them both in a box and go. Because this one is all one cake, you want to go ahead and support it. So you need a dowel rod, and you need to make sure you have one that's long enough to go all the way through the cake. The cake has softened the cake board enough. Now you're going to take a hammer, and you're just going to go right through there. And you're just going to hammer all the way down. And believe me, you'll find when you get to the bottom, you're going to mark your thing, your dowel rod. I'm going to push this back into my cake and push it down. So now your cake is nice and stable and sturdy. Hope you enjoyed this lesson. Our next lesson is going to be on wedding cakes, and we're going to take all of this and bring it together. Can't wait to see you. Thanks for watching.